Hello everyone. For the ones who do not know me, my name is Sofía, and this is a picture of me during parade in military camp. Now, parade consists of standing for 45 minutes without moving, without shifting your weight, under 34 degrees Celsius heat, holding a sword, and with a horde of bugs surrounding you. I have fainted 3 times because of parade, and it has been one of the best experiences of my entire life. However, if you think I'm the only one crazy enough to enjoy the whole thing, I do want to mention that every year, 600 other campers come and enjoy military camp. As you can see in this picture, we all look pretty uncomfortable. But I'm sure that if you asked each and every one of these girls and they enjoyed the experience, they would say yes. And you may be wondering, why would people go to military camp? And there's a bunch of reasons. It's either children of alumni, returning campers, and sometimes, but rarely, and I know you're all thinking, almost never people go there as a punishment. And we all had one thing in common. And that's that we were all extremely nervous the first time we got there. In fact, it's widely known that people almost never choose to partake in an experience that is known to be difficult. Science suggests that we fear an unknown outcome more than we do a known bad one. This is an explanation for why some people hate surprises. If you're familiar with basic pop culture, then you've probably heard of the phrase, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." And even though this comes from a cheesy pop song, it does have scientific backing to it. Normally, when you go into a challenging circumstance, you emerge better on the other side. Scientists have found that in order to optimize your human performance, be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, you have to be in a state of relative anxiety, aka not in your comfort zone. So I want to show you this chart, and as you can see, when you're in a state of boredom or depression or a complete meltdown, you are not performing well. But when you're in that middle stage of having some stress and some anxiety, that's when you're performing at your highest. So going into these situations that make you uncomfortable is the easiest way to actually become a better person. If you're familiar with neuroscience, then you've probably heard of the hormone called dopamine. And as you can see by this picture, people normally associate dopamine as the feel-good hormone because they think that dopamine is released by the brain as a reward for doing something good, something to make you happy. However, and I was shocked when I found out about this too, dopamine is also released by the brain during feelings of stress or anxiety. This means that dopamine can either motivate you towards something or motivate you against it. So why is this important? Well, the more that you go into hard situations that give you stress and anxiety, the easier it's going to become for your brain to associate these situations as something normal, something that should be embraced. Because if you don't know this, your brain is malleable, which means that it's constantly changing and rewiring its pathways. So you can train your brain for something to become a habit. I'll give an example. Let's say that you have a ton of homework and it's all due for the next day. For parents, a ton of work. And you decide, well, I'm really stressed, I want to relax. So I'll watch one episode of whatever show. Obviously, if you're procrastinators, then that one episode is going to turn into 2, 3, and it's going to be late at night, and you're going to think, well, I didn't do any of my work. I'd rather go to sleep. But because you were feeling that stress during that moment, your brain is going to release that dopamine. And the more that you procrastinate, the more that you're not responsible, the more that your brain is going to start to associate that procrastination to something good or something that should be normal. And the harder it's actually going to become to start being responsible. Before we go too deep into neuroscience though, I want to give an easier example. So imagine that you're with a friend, partner, parents, and they tell you, I'm gonna give you a surprise trip. I'll pay for everything and I'll plan everything. So obviously you think, woo, that's work for me, right? So you get on the plane, and as you're landing, you realize that you're in the middle of the jungle. Still, you think, wow, an exotic vacation, right? As you're getting off though, your guide tells you that for a whole week, you're gonna have to forage for food and build your own shelter. This would obviously come as a shock if you're not an adventurous person, and if you were expecting a non-included relaxing vacation. But now that you're there, you're gonna be there for a whole week, you have two options. Number one, you could decide to go with the flow, try to make the best out of the situation. Or number two, you could complain. And apart from the fact that nobody likes people who complain all the time, option number one would help you become a better person. I do want to emphasize that both of these options would release dopamine in your brain because you're going to be in a situation of high stress. But trying to cope with the situation, trying to, at least have a somewhat happy vacation, will give you that benefit, that reward of emerging as a better person. Scientists have said that experiences make or break a person. This means that the more that you go into those challenging situations, your brain is going to become more accustomed to being challenged, and the more that life is going to become easier in the long run. When interviewing successful CEOs, researchers found out that they all recurrently stated that when dealing with a challenge, they decided to take action, try to make the best out of the situation, just go with it and don't let it affect them personally. So this type of mindset is not only essential to becoming successful, but also to improving your mental and physical health. Philosophers agree with this idea, and if you haven't heard of John Locke, he's one of the greatest English philosophers, and he stated that the self is a culmination of experiences and memories. Scientists have a name for this, and it's called post-traumatic growth. And post-traumatic growth is where 70% of people who go through a difficult situation end up experiencing positive psychological growth or change after dealing with it. We can associate this with someone who has been in a car accident. They spent time in the hospital and they're later gonna learn to appreciate their life more because they know how hard it was to get to that point and how close they were to losing it. So I invite you all to go back to that childhood mentality. And by childhood, I mean not being afraid of taking risks, of failing or being successful, it didn't matter. But as children, we all learned how to walk. We had to fall multiple times before we did it, but in the end, we were all able to. And we weren't afraid if we were gonna fail. We just tried and tried and tried. And this is why most people end up enjoying parade and go back 3 consecutive years to try out military. Because the hardest experiences are the ones that give out the best rewards. And I invite you all to try it. Thank you.